What's going on, shoe family? Kyle here from Does Kyle Dig It, the volleyball focused shoe review channel where we take signature and performance basketball shoes and review them for the sport of volleyball. As always, I'm your host, Kyle, both a volleyball coach and a volleyball player with a very unhealthy shoe obsession. Today, I'm really excited because we're going to be talking about the Li-Ning JB3s. As always, if you like this type of content, please like and subscribe. Hit that notification bell so you know when we're dropping more content. Now that nationals are over and I'm back full time, I'm trying to release a lot more content throughout the summer. So make sure you stay tuned because there's going to be a lot of shoe releases that are going to be hitting as we get closer and closer to the summer. And then again, as we get closer and closer to the holiday season at the end of the year. That being said, let's go ahead and let's get into the Li-Ning JB3s. Now, Jimmy Butler's third shoe through Li-Ning is a banger. If you've already watched my top 5 shoes so far of 2025, you know that these made the list. And as I wear them more, I am liking them and enjoying them more and more, especially as I've been breaking in a little bit of that upper material. These shoes have been feeling even more comfortable than when I first put them on foot. That being said, though, let's go ahead and get into that breakdown. Now, these shoes, they start and retail around $170, and I've seen some colorways on WowSole ranging all the way up to like $250 to $300, depending. They're kind of hard to find, just like a lot of the Li-Ning shoes. So if you do go on WowSole, the prices may vary, and you might end up paying a good chunk more than $200 for a pair of these shoes. That being said, I think that they're worth it for the performance value, but because there are other shoes that are offered for so much cheaper that do have really, really good performance, I could certainly see you not wanting to justify this particular purchase. Now, as we always do, let's start with the traction of our shoes, and that was the big thing that made these bad boys stand out and why they made my top 5 list for this year so far. We've got kind of like a unique, it's the JB logo pattern, which is kind of like triangles and symbols. They're not super thick or deep on the shoe, which made me a little bit concerned at first. But the material that we've got is the GCU from Li-Ning, right? It's the ground control unit. It's like a kind of almost like a synthetic stuff. It is amazing on these shoes. These are the hardest stopping shoes that I have, hands down. There are some shoes that stop really hard, and then there's the Li-Ning JB3s. First time I wore these shoes and actually put them on to wear on court, they stopped so hard that I had to kind of get used to it because I was worried I was going to hurt myself the first couple of times out the gate. That's just how hard these bad boys stop. Now, you can see in the particular colorway that I got that there is a little bit of discoloration happening on that white GCU. And I found that to be kind of the case with the GCU across most of the Li-Ning and or Way of Wade lines. If it's the white GCU, it tends to get kind of yellowy and discolored really quickly. So make sure you keep that in mind. It's not a big deal to me because it's not the exposed part of the shoe. So not a huge deal, but I could see over time that discoloration could potentially be a little bit annoying. I like these though so much that if that ever did happen, I would probably just get another pair because these shoes are phenomenal. So traction, 11 out of 10. A stop so hard that you might hurt yourself is what I'm going to go ahead and say about these. So make sure you try them, test them out, because you will have to get used to how hard these shoes stop. Dusty courts, dusty sport court, doesn't matter the surface, they stop. They're going to be amazing. Like I said, I just came back recently from USAV Nationals 2025, where I actually wore the Way of Wade 808 V5s for one set. And I had an issue with those shoes actually sliding out on the sport court. So I switched to the JB3s and I had no issues. These things performed excellently. And I had a heck of a game actually at Nationals when I played in these shoes. So traction, again, 11 out of 10. Amazing stuff. They almost stopped too hard. So just make sure you keep that in mind. Now, as we move on our way on up the shoe, we start to talk about that cushioning and comfort and step in. These do have a nice kind of rounded shape at the heel. Not super pronounced, but it is nice enough to give it a nice heel to toe transition because of the way that we have the toe swooped up here. Now, we actually have a sandwiched carbon fiber midfoot shank plate that runs kind of a swoop on all the way kind of like from here down through the shoe. You can see it actually through mine because of the kind of translucent GCU rubber where the carbon fiber plate is, but it is actually sandwiched in between what is a combination of foams for this particular shoe. So for this shoe, we've got a Cloud Plus carrier, right, which is the outside foam, which is then caging in full-length boom foam on the interior of the shoe. And then, of course, both that foam is then sandwiching the carbon fiber plate. All in all, it comes together to make, oh my gosh, maybe one of the stiffest, bounciest shoes that I have currently. Where the 808 V5 has a regular carbon fiber plate with the Super Boom and feels nice and light and bouncy, this shoe feels snappy bouncy. Like I just want to bounce off of the ground because of just how hard the carbon plate is in here, and it being sandwiched in between the foam on these, it just makes your foot want to get up off the ground. Now, all of that goes ahead and it rests underneath what is kind of a foam strobel here. Can't really feel anything or see anything underneath it, and it's comfortable and it has nice, good, soft cushioning and feel to it, but you get really nice heel compression on these shoes, which would make sense because of that Cloud Plus the boom carrier and everything. Really, really good stuff. Overall, cushioning and support out of these, 10 out of 10. I actually would definitely recommend this shoe for like bigger players. If you're a bigger, individual, you're tall, you've got a little bit more mass behind you and everything, this shoe is going to be an awesome choice for you because it's very, very supportive and has really, really good cushioning and support, but it feels very springy. I could see middles really enjoying this particular shoe a lot on foot just because of how responsive it feels. You don't have a lot of diminished court feel. You get really good impact protection. And of course, that traction, like I said, is nothing to be scoffed at. So I could see middles really enjoying this shoe at their particular position. Now, so that being said, cushioning of the shoe, like I said, 10 out of 10. Now, as we move our way on up the shoe for our lockdown and support, we've got kind of this nice hard plastic heel counter here that keeps everything caged in. And then it's actually it's really, I'm not sure how to describe this particular like synthetic, almost tough suede material, but it definitely feels substantial and it feels really high quality. And that when I first was in the shoe and was wearing it, it felt a little bit rigid, right? Took me a little bit longer on the break-in period for these particular shoes over some of the other shoes that I have. I would say for break-in on these, give these a good 6 to 7 actual sessions before you really break in that upper material and start to kind of feel it more loosen up for you and everything. However, even when it does break in and loosen up, it still feels really high quality. And that's definitely a big selling point of this shoe, especially with the price tag on it. I have really high confidence that these shoes are going to last a good chunk of time because of just how good and how really just high quality and nice these materials feel on the upper. So you've got that material here, and then there's kind of like a faux leather for the toe box. Now, that's for this particular JB3 model. There are other JB3 models out there that have a slightly different designed upper with a more synthetic looking material. I have not tried those yet. So if I do get another pair of these, I may try to get a colorway in that to see if it's substantially different, but I wouldn't assume that it's going to be so much different or so much more cheap feeling that it wouldn't be just as nice as the regular upper on these. But that is something to take into account if you're looking at getting a pair of these. Just make sure you're paying attention to that upper material because they are different depending on which colorway you get. Now, As we make our way on up the shoe, we've got this, same material, really, really high quality stuff that goes into the tongue. And then right here at the front of the tongue, inside of it, there's an extra little bit of padding here. Now, the material is high quality enough and kind of like sturdy enough that it cushions well. Having that nice little padding there is an extra bonus. So when you lace these shoes down, there was really no pinching or discomfort I had across the shoe. The only thing I will say is that the first couple of times I wore this shoe, I didn't feel like I could get them fully laced in until I really cranked down on it. But that was just due to the stiffness of this upper material and allowing for that break-in period before I could really lace them the way that I wanted to. Now that I've played in these several times, and I've actually played in them in very significant tournaments, I've been able to get them really laced down nicely, and they're comfortable across the tongue, right? Now, on the interior of the shoe, we've got extra padding, nothing crazy substantial, but just enough extra plusness here around the sides and around your Achilles tendon to give you a little bit of extra cushioning. It's not the most amount of padding that I've seen, but it's adequate enough. It does support your shoe, or support your foot, I should say. So overall, lockdown and support of these shoes, probably a 9.5 out of 10. I wish there was just like a little bit more padding up in here, and having maybe, just a little bit more plushness in the tongue would be nice. But overall, it's a pretty solid design. Feels really, really comfortable. And now that I've had a little bit of time, I would say it's teetering in that 10 out of 10 range now that I've broken in this upper material significantly, and it feels a lot more comfortable on foot. Now, average weight of my shoes is 12.5 ounces. These bad boys right here came in at 11.75 ounces. So definitely a little bit lighter underneath the average. I actually wasn't expecting that. I thought they was going to be pretty average just because of kind of how sturdy these shoes felt. They don't feel lightweight on foot. They don't feel heavy on foot. So they feel average, but it is nice that they are a little bit lighter. It's not something that you necessarily notice with these particular shoes. But that will go ahead and that will wrap up the Li-Ning JB3s. Obviously, from the list I did before and the 10 out of 10, 11 out of 10, 9.5, 10 out of 10s that I've given this shoe across the board, it's obvious that, I do dig these shoes. They're fantastic. These are going to be one of my primary shoes in my, game day and actual tournament lineup as we go through the 2025 season and we start to get into the 2026 season. These are obviously going to be what I carry into next season as probably one of my primary wear options, just because of how sturdy they feel, how good they feel, and just that traction is really nothing to scoff at. If you want a shoe that stops, look no further than the Li-Ning JB3s. But let me know what you think about these shoes down in the comments. Do you like them? Do you like the look and the style of these shoes? Or are you not a fan? Do you plan on getting any of them in the near future, even despite that really hefty price tag? But as always, if you like this type of content, please like and subscribe. Turn that notification bell on so you know when we're dropping more reviews on more shoes. I'm planning on getting out a lot more content as we go throughout the summer. So make sure you get subscribed so you can catch up on all of that and get reviews on all the latest shoe models that are coming out. But that'll be it for the Li-Ning JB3s. This will be Coach Kyle signing off from Does Kyle Dig It?